Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube NFL prediction segment, I'm going to be giving you my 2017-2018 NFC Divisional round preview of the matchup between the New Orleans Saints and Minnesota Vikings. Now, first thing off, as far as this game goes, the first thing I look at is that the Minnesota Vikings are obviously a very formidable team at 13-3. They were 7-1 at home this season, nearly invincible and flawless at home this season. The only loss they had was a 14-7 defeat at the hands of the Lions, and at that time it was earlier in the season, and the Vikings were really, I didn't think they were as good then as they are now. They have won 11 of their last 12 games. They will be rested. They finished with the #1 scoring and total defense in the NFL, and coupled with the fact they do, I believe, have a little bit of a psychological edge over the Saints due to the fact that they defeated the Saints earlier this season, 29-19, and that was also at Minnesota. Vikings will have the home field in this game. Now, I look at it like this. I mean, if they were able to beat them one time at Minnesota, I think they could do it again. And obviously, very strong home field advantage. Again, Vikings 7-1 at home. The Saints, however, were just a mediocre 4-4 on the road. Now, the Saints have a much improved defense. It was much maligned in previous seasons, but they finished at number 10 in scoring defense, giving up just about 20 points per game. And Drew Brees has the defense, and he also has a running game as well, which was 5th in the NFL this season. Now, the thing about it is, I look at this since that loss, the game that Minnesota, when they lost to the Vikings 14-7, the Vikings have been 11-1 at that time. Now, the Vikings may have one of the best defenses in the NFL, probably the best right now statistically, but the Saints do have a superlative offense. And interestingly enough, the Saints and Vikings actually ranked 1 and 2 respectively this season in completion percentage. The Saints completed like 72% of their passes thrown this season. Drew Brees had a really phenomenal season as far as his accuracy goes. And you look at this as well, that the Saints have averaged 28 points per game this season. The Saints finished in terms of total offense, #2, and they were #4 in scoring offense. So, again, I mean, looking at this, the Saints also were #5 in passing offense, while the Vikings were #2 in pass defense. So the Vikings have a little slight marginal edge as far as their pass defense, that matchup against the Saints' passing offense. Now, the Vikings have also dominated the series against the Saints at Minnesota in recent time. The Vikings have taken 6 of the last 7 versus the Saints at Minnesota. But the Saints, they have what I see, in my opinion, is an unheralded offensive line, because the Saints, they only gave up 20 sacks this season. That was the second fewest sacks allowed in the league. And the Saints have allowed the fewest pressures, as far as pressuring Drew Brees, and that was 109. So they're going to give Drew Brees very good protection in this game, I believe, and I think that's going to give Drew Brees ample time to throw, which will obviously be advantageous to the Saints. Now, another thing, I see this game as being very close. Keep in mind, okay, Minnesota, looking at them overall, Minnesota with their defense, I think, is a little bit better in contrast to the Saints' offense. But keep in mind, the Saints do have certain playoff experience with Drew Brees, and Drew Brees is everything but unflappable. He's a very experienced quarterback. He's got more experience than Casey Keenum for the Vikings. But it's not like, it's one of those things where I wouldn't be flabbergasted if the Saints actually won the game. I do favor the Vikings slightly, and I think another thing to look at, this game bodes to be a little bit closer than the previous meeting, which the Vikings merged victorious 29-19, because I look at this like, well, the Saints had given up like 346 passing yards, receiving yards to the Vikings, and I don't see them giving up that much in this game. I think they're going to make their adjustments. And the Saints also, what they did in that game, they got the 19 points because of 1 touchdown and 4 field goals. I think in this game they're going to get maybe 2 touchdowns anyway, and I think they're going to score more points than they did in the previous matchup against the Vikings this season. And what's interesting is the Vikings defense played so well against New Orleans in that game that the Saints, they didn't even get their touchdown until 1:56 remaining in the game. And I just think it's going to be hard-pressed to do that 2 times to the Saints. I mean, they're going to play, I think the Vikings are going to win. I think their defense will be solid. But I think the Saints' offense will perform a little bit better in this one as opposed to earlier this season. And wide receiver Adam Thielen also scorched the Saints for 157 receiving yards with 9 receptions in that earlier meeting this season. So that being said, overall, I mean, it's really the main reason I picked the Vikings is virtue of them being at home, which I stated before. They were nearly flawless at home this season, 7-1 at home. In contrast to the Vikings, the Saints 4-4 on the road. They had defeated them already this time. At home this season. They have dominated the series in recent time at Minnesota against the Saints. Vikings have taken 6 of the last 7 versus the Saints at Minnesota. And I just like their defense to be a little bit better than the Saints' offense this game. The Vikings have certainly made believers out of me, and I think they're going to keep making believers out of people, I believe, after this game. So I do like the Vikings to win this one at home. It should be a tight game. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube NFL prediction segment for my preview of the 2017-2018 divisional round matchup between the Saints and the Vikings. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.